Hello and welcome to Interesting Times. This time I'm going to tell you a bit about the Russian military doctrine, and I will conclude with the results of the opinion polls conducted by the Levada Center in Russia. The update to the Russian military doctrine made a bit of a splash on the headlines on November the 19th, and even I, as the undisputed queen of the boring thumbnail and even more boring title, I can understand that a headline like, "In June, President Putin and his advisors began a revision of certain aspects of the military doctrine document, specifically the nuclear doctrine, and these were agreed at a meeting of the Security Council at the end of September, and the Cancelleria wrote it all out properly and sent it to the President to be signed off in November," is hardly a thrilling headline. News need to have a sense of novelty and immediacy, otherwise, well, it's history. And I understand all that, but also, in my opinion, gives the impression that Russia moves fast, which is not the case. Russia is a huge federation with a bureaucracy to match. Nothing happens quickly. The only knee-jerk reaction I've seen in recent times was when the late Prigozhin led a contingent of Wagnerites on the road to Moscow. So let's unpack what the document is and its context. The nuclear doctrine was part of a larger document, which is the military doctrine of the Russian Federation. In the doctrine, nuclear weapons are a deterrent to prevent large-scale conflict, and their use is strictly limited to specific scenarios. The Russian Federation reserves the right to use nuclear weapons if Russia, Belarus, or Russia allies are attacked with nuclear weapons or weapons of mass destruction. In some occurrences, also with conventional weapons, if the attack jeopardizes the existence of the state or the state's ability to retaliate. An important change, in my opinion, in the November update is in how an adversary or enemy is defined. In past versions of the doctrine, the adversary was a bloc, a coalition, or an alliance attacking Russia or her allies. This definition started to change in the 2014 amendment, and in the 2024 update, an adversary are states and organizations that provide any type of aid that can be used by the military of a primary adversary, i.e. the state that is actually fighting Russia. This entry is then followed by a section listing scenarios that may trigger nuclear retaliation. The conditions under which Russia may consider using nuclear weapons are relatively well defined, but also have a lot of latitude. In my opinion, the enlarged definition of adversary is counterbalanced by creating a maze of fences for what could elicit a nuclear response. The doctrine on one side keeps the hawks in the Kremlin relatively happy, but also makes it quite tricky for any group to use the document to force the president's hand. The Russian Federation military doctrine is available online. Links in the description below. President Putin made it public in 2000. This is a short outline of the evolution of the document since the 2000. The first review happens in 2010, then there are reviews in 2014, and in 2020 a separate document is produced. It's called "On the Fundamentals of State Policy in the Field of Nuclear Restraint." In November 2024, a new version of the nuclear doctrine is approved. It is interesting to me how the updates since 2000 map a changing mood in the Kremlin. In 2000, the Russian Federation is committed to preserve international stability and peace. In the next revision of 2010, NATO, for the first time since 2000, is identified as the main external military threat to Russia, which is somewhat at odds with the final statement of the NATO Lisbon Summit of 2010 that seems to point to a reconciliation between NATO and Russia. Although the 2010 version should have lasted till 2020, there was a revision in 2014. In 2014, among the external military threats to Russia are NATO expansionist drive, missile defense systems moving closer to the Russian borders, interference in the national affairs of states neighboring Russia, and I quote, the subversive activities of special services and organizations of foreign states and their coalitions against the Russian Federation. The last two are probably linked to the Kremlin's view that the Maidan revolution of 2014 in Ukraine and the ousting of Yanukovych's government were engineered by the United States. In the 2020 revision, the definition of adversary or threat actors begins to include states that deploy offensive weaponry aimed at Russia in countries other than their own. The tweaking of the doctrine probably points to things to come and the beginning of the all-out war with Ukraine in 2022. I would say that the risk to Europe has not dramatically increased as a result of the new amendments, but the amendments hint to long-term confrontation. However, what I think is causing quite a few issues among Ukraine's allies is the items listed in point of the document, which hints at a number of strategies designed to undermine Russia's adversaries from within, such as leveraging corruption, spreading misinformation, butting on pre-existing resentment and discontent among the people, just to name a few. In short, what every country that can does to other countries. Think Cold War routines updated for the 21st century. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, these are the opinion polls results for the month of November conducted by the Levada Center in Russia. Approval ratings remain high across the board, and the social indexes point to a reasonable level of contentment among the respondents. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. That would be great. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.